If you've been scrolling through endless UPS options, watching video after video that throws numbers at you, and still aren't sure which one actually makes sense for your gaming rig, this review should clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last week wiring a mid-range gaming PC, a couple of high-performance monitors, and a streaming deck, then deliberately tripping the power to see how each backup unit reacts, so I can tell you what really matters when you're deciding whether to spend a few $100s on a UPS. First off, the Eaton Tripp Lite series SmartOnline 2200VA is a double conversion unit, which means it creates a clean, pure sine wave output no matter what the utility line looks like. For a gaming PC that runs a high-end graphics card, a fast processor, and multiple SSDs, that matters because any distortion in the power can cause crashes, data corruption, or even premature hardware wear. The pure sine wave label isn't just marketing fluff, it actually mimics the power you'd get from the grid in perfect condition. If you've ever seen a sudden dip in frame rates or a blue screen right after a storm, a double conversion UPS like this one can be the difference between a quick reboot and a lost save file. Now, the 2200VA rating translates to roughly 1,800 watts of usable power. In plain English, that's enough to keep a typical gaming tower, say a Ryzen 7 CPU, an RTX 3070, a couple of 144Hz monitors, and a streaming capture card, running for about 8 to 10 minutes after the lights go out. Those extra minutes aren't for marathon gaming sessions. They're for giving you a chance to hit, save, and exit in a match, shut down your PC safely, or switch to a laptop if you need to stay online for a voice chat. I tested it by loading a demanding game, cranking the graphics settings, then pulling the mains. The lights on the front LCD stayed steady, the fans kept their speed, and the system stayed fully responsive for the full 9-minute window before the UPS started beeping. That's exactly the kind of grace period you want. One of the hidden trade-offs with any UPS is the noise level. Because the SmartOnline design constantly runs the inverter, you'll hear a faint hum that's louder than a standby mode power strip, but far quieter than a cheap online UPS that's built with cheap fans. In my test setup, the hum was barely noticeable over the ambient room noise and certainly didn't bleed into my microphone while I was streaming. If you're setting up a quiet bedroom rig, you might want to keep the UPS on a separate shelf or under a desk with a bit of ventilation, but it won't dominate your soundscape. The unit also comes with a small LCD front panel that shows input voltage, battery charge, load percentage, and estimated runtime. This is more than a blinking LED. It actually lets you see at a glance how much of your total power budget you're using. In practice, I noticed that when I added a second monitor and a USB-C dock, the load percentage jumped from about 30% to 55%, still comfortably under the 80% threshold where many UPSs start to limit output. The LCD helped me balance my peripherals without having to guess. A practical strength that often goes unnoticed is the user-replaceable battery. The Tripp Lite UPS lets you pull the battery pack without tools, so when the original cells age out, usually after 3 to 5 years, you can extend the life of the whole unit without buying a brand new UPS. That aligns well with a gamer's mindset of upgrading components rather than tossing the whole system. The extended runtime kit, which is sold separately, adds about another 30% of backup time, a worthwhile investment if you live in an area with frequent brownouts. On the flip side, there are a few weaknesses that matter if you're a strict budget shopper. The price point lands in the upper mid-range for consumer UPSs, and you're paying not just for the power capacity, but for the double conversion architecture and the LCD. If you only need a short surge protector for a console or a low-end PC, a basic line interactive UPS could save you $100, $150. Also, the unit is a 2U rack-mountable model that also works as a tower. It's physically larger than a typical home UPS, so you'll need a dedicated spot on the floor or a rack. In a cramped desk setup, that size can feel a bit imposing. Who should buy this? If you run a gaming PC that you care about, one with an expensive GPU, fast NVMe storage, and you stream or record your sessions, you'll benefit from the clean power, the runtime buffer, and the replaceable battery. It also makes sense for a small home office where you have a workstation that handles both work files and personal gaming, because a sudden loss of power could mean both lost productivity and lost progress in a game. The network card option, which adds remote monitoring through a web interface, is a nice